I never considered myself a jealous girl. I trusted Jake, my boyfriend, from the moment we started dating 2 years ago. He was sweet, considerate, smart, and most importantly, honest. At least, that's what I thought. It all started with little things. The ones you intuitively feel but don't want to admit. He started coming home later than usual. His phone, which used to be on the nightstand, was now always in his pocket. And a new perfume, not mine, not ours. Something woody with a spicy note that lingered on his shirts. I asked once, but he shrugged. A colleague gave it to me. I just decided to try it. I nodded. I smiled. But something stirred inside. Suspicion. We were supposed to go to my parents' for dinner on Sunday. Jake called an hour before we were supposed to leave. Sorry, work. I was called. We'll definitely meet tomorrow, okay? He taught convincingly. Almost sincerely. But I didn't take anything at face value anymore. Dinner passed in silence. Mom asked if everything was okay. I nodded, but I couldn't gather my thoughts. That same evening, I took his old laptop. He hadn't used it for a long time, and I decided that perhaps there was something left there. Compromising. Nothing. Empty, as if erased. Then I registered in one of the applications that allows you to track a person's movements through access to a Google account. I knew his password. It was simple. The name of his favorite dog and the year we met. Don't be offended, but men often underestimate our intelligence. He said he was in the office, but the map showed otherwise. A small house on the outskirts of the city. And not for the first time. 4 times in the past 2 weeks. Always in the evening. My heart sank. I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I didn't want to see what was already obvious. But I decided not to cry. Not to make a scene. I decided to play the game. His game. The next day, I behaved as I always did. I made coffee. I kissed him on the cheek. I wished him a good day. And in the evening, I started to make a plan. The next morning, I woke up before he did. The sun was just breaking through the blinds, flooding our bedroom with a soft golden light. Jake slept, curled up in a ball, his breathing even, almost childlike. I looked at him and thought, what if I'm wrong? What if this is all just a coincidence? But instinct, something deep and primal, whispered quietly to me, no, you know the truth. You just haven't seen her face yet. When he left for work, I stayed home. I canceled my morning meeting, turned on the coffee maker, but instead of sitting down and relaxing, I got back to work. I opened his Google account. I checked his movement history again. The house is on the outskirts of the city. Next to it is a small park, a gas station, and a coffee shop. Everything looked familiar, even ordinary. But ordinariness is the best cover for a lie. I wrote down the address, then the license plate number. I took a screenshot. I planned to use all of this later. On Monday, he said again that he would be late for work. I just nodded and smiled. It seemed as if I didn't suspect anything at all. He even kissed me on the forehead before leaving. And I stood in the doorway and watched him go, clutching my phone, which already had the GPS tracker turned on. I waited until 10 o'clock in the evening. He hadn't come back yet. Then I put on my sneakers, tucked my hair under the hood of my hoodie, and went outside. I left my car on the next street. I found the same house. The windows were dark, only one room was lit, somewhere on the second floor. In the window, I saw a woman's shadow. She was walking by, and behind her was a man's. They were together. They were close. My heart was beating so hard that I was afraid I could hear it even on the street. I almost felt sick, but I stayed. I stood there in the shade of the trees, under the wet asphalt, until I saw him come out, alone, walking slowly to his car, without turning around, like after an ordinary day. I slowly walked home. I was shaking with anger, fear, but at the same time, a strange calm. Now I knew for sure. And there was power in that knowledge. The next morning, I behaved as I always did. Not a hint. On the contrary, I became even more tender. I hugged him more often, asked about his day, laughed at his jokes. He relaxed. He believed that everything was over. And that's when I started writing. Notes, details, dates, screenshots, photos, every step he took. I recorded everything. Every lie, every call, every change in mood. All this was necessary not only for me. I knew that when the moment of truth came, I would not simply say, "You are a traitor." I will prove it. I will destroy his peace of mind with the same cold, carefully planned logic with which he destroyed my trust. A week after that night, I did something that seemed crazy. I created a fake Tinder account and added a few photos of someone else. A girl who looked nothing like me. Blonde hair, tattoos, a different style. And in the first match, he appeared. Jake. I blinked at the screen, not believing my eyes. He wrote first. Hi, you're very beautiful. Then, compliments. And an invitation to coffee, I replied, in the guise of the other one. We played a game. He didn't recognize me. And that's when I realized he wasn't just cheating on me physically. He was cheating on me as a person. He was looking for something else. Not better. Just not me. I curled up in a ball on the couch. I wanted to cry, but the tears wouldn't come. Only anger. That evening, when he came back, I already knew that these were the last days of his illusion. I was no longer the victim. I was becoming the hunter. I sat in front of the monitor, scrolling through the correspondence like a film reel in which I played two roles at once, the betrayed woman and the stranger who seduced him. My fake profile was called Chloe Rivers. A little trite, but he liked it. He wrote every night. He asked me what I liked, what I did. Did I have a boyfriend? I replied, I had one. But he disappeared, like smoke. And he replied, he's lucky. I wouldn't let you go. Oh, Jake, how you're playing with fire, with a woman who's already set him on fire. On the 6th day of correspondence, he asked Chloe out, Friday 8 p.m. at a bar on 3rd Avenue. It was our favorite bar, ironically. Was it intentional? I didn't know. But my heart sank. It was all becoming real. I added a new action to the plan. Phase 2, the meeting. I could have just shown up instead of Chloe. Right there in the bar, say everything like in a cheap TV show. But no, that wasn't enough. I had to show him that I had seen everything. I knew everything. And I was leading him by a string, like a puppet. On Thursday, I turned to my friend Laura. She works for a production company that does wedding videos. She had the equipment, cameras, microphones, and she knew how it all worked. Do you really need this? She asked when I showed her the Tinder screenshots and the messages. I don't just want to know. I want him to feel every second of his hypocrisy, on his own skin, she agreed. We planned everything down to the smallest detail. I knew he would sit at his favorite table, to the right of the bar. The acoustics are good there. We'll hide a camera on a shelf behind the bottles, and another in a flower vase on a table near the entrance. Laura will play Chloe. She looks like the photos I used. Tattoo, platinum hair, cat eyeliner. She knew how to hold her own, cold, slightly flirtatious, but with caution. Like a perfect stranger. If anything, I'll hit him with a glass, Laura joked. No need. It's not physical pain I want to inflict, I replied. It has to be a psychological flame. On Friday, I left home a little earlier than he did. I said I was meeting a colleague. He didn't even ask who. There was complete certainty in his eyes that I was still the same faithful Emma. Poor thing. At 7:30 p.m., Laura and I were already at the bar. She was sitting at a table, drinking mineral water, playing with her phone. I was in the background, in the shadows, behind the partition. I couldn't see me. The cameras were ready. The microphone was in Laura's ear. At 7:58 p.m., Jake showed up. For the first time, I looked at him, not as a lover, but as an object, like a test subject, in a white shirt, his hair perfect. He was excited but trying to seem calm. Chloe? He approached. Hello? Laura looked up. She smiled. You're not Josh, are you? Maybe, but I'm glad to see you. He sat down. He ordered 2 drinks. He started talking about his hard job, about his ex-girlfriend who was emotionally unstable. That's me, if anything. About how hard it is to find a normal woman. I was shaking, but I held on, quietly, motionless, like a predator about to pounce. Laura continued to play the role. She was simply wonderful. She winked, giggled, played with a straw. And here was the key moment. Do you often get messages from girls like that? She asked. To be honest, he replied, I didn't even look for them. I just happened upon them. Things are complicated at home. We're like brother and sister. I don't feel, he faltered, passion. Laura looked into his eyes. Maybe you just haven't found the one who will make you burn yet? He smiled and touched her hand. I barely restrained myself from running out. But this wasn't the end yet. This was just the climax. The main scene was supposed to take place at home. He walked Laura to a taxi. She kissed him on the cheek. The cameras recorded everything. He even turned around when she left. He probably thought he had just been interviewed for a new role in his double-life theater. And I was waiting for him at home. I sat in the dark, only the light from the floor lamp falling on my hands folded in my lap. Next to me was a laptop, already loaded with video from the camera. Bar him, Laura, Chloe, everything, frame by frame. I had been reviewing it even before he entered the apartment, and every time everything inside me tightened when I saw him touch her, as he said what he had once told me. At 10:40 p.m., the lock clicked. I heard the door open. His voice came. Are you home? Here, I answered evenly, without turning around. He went into the living room, took off his jacket, threw the keys on the bedside table. Then he saw me, calm, quiet, completely unlike the one who usually throws himself into his arms. Are you okay? Or should I not? I turned my head to him, slowly, as if in slow motion. How was your evening? It was fine, just hanging out with the guys at the pub. Nothing special. Oh, what acting. Oscar, no doubt. I nodded. I picked up my laptop and turned the screen to face him. I decided to watch a movie too, I said. Do you want to join in? What are we watching? I pressed play. On the screen, him, approaching Laura, sitting down, smiling, laughing, touching her hand. His face changed. At first he didn't understand what he was seeing. Then he realized and froze. What is this? His voice broke. It's your Friday. Favorite bar. You, Chloe. Although her real name is Laura. My friend. The camera is hers. And there was another one in the vase. Familiar? It's a trap. I stood up. My hands were shaking, but I didn't back down. You cheated on me. More than once. And I knew it. You acted like a child who thinks his mother doesn't see him pulling candy out of the cupboard. And I saw everything. He took a step forward, but I stopped him with a look. No need. You won't explain anything. You know what's the worst? Not the kisses. Not the deception. But how easily you lied to me every day. How you looked me in the eye and said you loved me. He was silent, pale, embarrassed. But I knew it wasn't out of guilt, out of fear of being found out. I didn't want to, he began. Of course, you just ran into someone on Tinder. How sweet. I ran into you too. Silence. Cruel. Sticky. I couldn't look at him anymore. The man standing before me was not my Jake. He was gone. Pack your things. I don't want to see you here. Emma, numero, you have no right to say my name, not today, and not in this house. He stood there, silent. Then he slowly turned and went to the bedroom. I heard him open his suitcase. I sat down on the couch. I exhaled. I didn't cry. I was no longer in pain. I had won. But this victory didn't make me want to celebrate. It was a war, and I survived. But not without scars. While he was packing, I deleted Chloe's fake account. I threw the flash drive with the recording in a drawer. I didn't know if I would show it to anyone, but I knew it would stay with me forever, as a lesson, and as a reminder. A woman doesn't always scream when she's been betrayed. Sometimes she's silent, watching, planning, and then she's not just a victim. She's the end of your show. 3 days had passed since Jake packed up and left our apartment. 3 endless days spent in thought, in memories, and in the cold silence of my own home. Every corner felt empty and foreign, and my soul felt wounded, yet solid as granite. The first day, I didn't answer his calls. The second day, I ignored his messages. But when the phone rang again on the morning of the third day, I took a deep breath and picked up the phone. Emma, please give me a chance to explain myself. His voice came, soft and slightly broken. Explain myself? I replied coldly. Explain yourself, how you became my liar? Or how long you've been a plaything in the hands of another woman? I made a mistake, and more than one, but it wasn't the way you think. I was confused. I realized that I was losing you, and I was afraid of losing what we had. I was silent. Although my heart wanted to cry, my mind told me to hold on. I want to meet, to talk, no games. I imagined him standing in front of me, with pain in his eyes, trying to restore what he himself had trampled. And, although the pain of betrayal did not let go, some spark woke up inside. The spark of a former love that had not yet burned to the ground. Okay, I finally answered. But on my terms. And so, we met in a small cafe, where we used to drink coffee together on Sundays. He looked exhausted, without the usual sparkle in his eyes. Emma, I don't want it to end like this, he said, grabbing my hands. I know that I destroyed our trust, but I am ready to fight. For you. For us. I looked into his eyes and saw in them what had once made me fall in love. But I sat next to him. New, stronger, more confident. And despite everything that had happened, I wanted to hear his truth. Why did you cheat? I asked quietly. He hesitated. I couldn't find any excuses. Only fear. Fear of not being good enough for you. I felt you pulling away. And instead of speaking, I took the easy way out. I was weak. This confession tore me in two. On one side was a bleeding wound. On the other, tenderness and a desire to believe. I want us to try again, he added. But only if you're willing to give me a chance. No secrets, no lies. I thought about it. I'd spent so many nights wondering if there was a future in our relationship. Okay, I said, but it's going to be a difficult road. And we're starting all over again. With a clean slate. He nodded, holding my hands tighter. But I knew. Around every corner was a shadow of doubt. And it was up to me whether I would let it take over again. After a conversation in the cafe, I returned home with a heavy heart and even heavier thoughts. He wanted to try everything again. I did too, but a storm was raging inside. The following weeks were a test. We agreed to be honest and open, but how could you tear down the walls you had built yourself? How could you rebuild trust if it was crumbling into tiny pieces? Jake tried. He wrote every day, called, came with flowers, tried to make little surprises. His eyes no longer lied, but a cold wall lived inside me. One evening, I came home from work and found a card in the kitchen. Emma, thank you for the second chance. I won't let you regret it. I promise to be better. With love, Jake. I sat down at the table and stared at the letter for a long time. It wasn't just a promise. It was a battle for our future. But reality was cruel. One evening, when Jake returned late, I noticed that his phone was silent. My heart sank. My doubts burst out. Are you hiding something again? I asked, not holding back my voice. He sighed. No, it was a difficult meeting. Don't you believe me? Or what? I want to believe, but it's hard for me. Very hard. Then he raised his hand and hugged me. Let's be honest. If I make a mistake, tell me. If you feel pain, tell me too. We will get through this together. I felt myself trembling for the first time in a long time, not with fear, but with hope. Time passed. We went to counseling with a psychologist. We talked without taboos. We learned to listen and hear each other. And one morning I woke up and realized the pain hadn't gone away, but I was ready to forgive. Not for him, for myself. Because keeping poison inside is the worst traitor. We started living in a new way. We understood true love is not only passionate words and promises, but also daily work, patience, and mutual respect. And although the wounds remained, they became part of our story. A reminder of how far we have come. This is not a fairy tale with a perfect ending. This is drama. Life. And I am the main character of my story. Because sometimes, the strongest female intelligence is not in catching a traitor, but in getting up after a fall and choosing to live on.